Put a one in the chat if you can hear me now. Put a one in the chat if you can hear me now. Put a one in the chat if you can hear me now. Put a one in the chat if you can hear me now. There it is. There it is. So man, so journey of life. Thank you. Thank you, Sister Ophelia. Thank you. Thank you. I can be heard now. Now I gotta take care of my other technical issues. Yes, I'm back. I told you some more. I'm on the whole other stream. I don't know how I got on this other stream right here, but I'm on another stream from other people. But I thank y'all for switching over. I don't know if I have like 3 or 4 streams going live right now, but I know one thing. Give me a moment, family. Give me a moment. I gotta do the whole live all over again. But the adversary is a liar because I'm feeling good. How y'all feeling tonight? How y'all feeling tonight? Let me know. How y'all feeling tonight after resting on this beautiful day where I am in Texas? It was partly cloudy skies with blue skies. I could see nice clouds, not the usual suspect. What do you call it? Chemtrail clouds. I was glad to see that. So that's what's up. So as I am waiting on the other folks to come on in here, I'm going to go ahead and update my avatar. So you are speaking with Akoti Tabor, also known as Akoti Speak. I am not Major TV. As you all know, I am not. So let me go ahead and get that in there. And then while that's loading up, I'm going to also need some time to send the link to my brethren that's on the other end of the stream backstage. So I see Sister Shirley Baker in the house from Raleigh, North Carolina. Thank you for letting me know about that audio. Thank you. Let me go to back to how is that, Sister Baker? How is that? Is that better on the audio? Us young people are used to listening to music at high volume, so I do apologize for the noise in the background. So we'll turn it down as I see where I drop the link and drop the link and I don't know what I want. Drop the link so that those that I want to come in can come in. This link is not for everyone at this time. I hope that includes the sound. Let's cancel that on that end. Shalom, family, and welcome back again to another episode of Okoti Speaks. I am Okoti Speaks. I am also known as Okoti Tamor. Shalom again. We are gathered here today to talk about $5 million per descendant of African slavery, descendants of African Americans who are descendants of slavery. The UN is charged with holding a tribunal to consider reparations, to consider holding the United States government accountable for reparations. So, as I am working towards trying to get this whole backstage thing figured out, um, y'all give me one moment as I text him and tell him that I got a new link in it. So it says I'm live in YouTube, and I see y'all are from YouTube. So I'm not quite sure where my guests are hanging out at. So just let them know that yeah, we're over here on YouTube. I don't know. Oh, okay. Malka, yeah. Thank you so much. Yes. Not sure where my other friends are hanging out at on what restream I guess restream page or stream, but I thought I only had one, but they're telling me they're backstage somewhere else. So that's very interesting to me. I don't know if they backstage in YouTube or backstage where, I don't know. But moving on, I want to go ahead and delve into it. I started the whole stream and nobody could hear me or hear anything that I was playing. I'm going to go ahead and replay that video that I played that nobody heard but me. I'm going to go ahead and play it again. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and play that video again. Um, yeah, what have been the problem? I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right here. Right here. Share. Let's get pause it for 1 second just to make sure everybody can see it and hear it. Can you all see that video, family? Just let me know. Put a 1 in the chat if you can see that video of brother Justin Hansford at the UN Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. Very good. There we go. Let's hear what the brother had to say before the UN. And the reason why this is important is because, after all, he's speaking on your. If you feel like you are a descendant of slaves, right? He's speaking on your behalf for the other nations of people. African descendants of slaves are represented as a nation of people before the UN at this forum on people of African descent. So they're talking about you. So I thought that this was very important, and they were the subject of reparations is on the table. Thanks to this brother called by the name of Justin Hansford. Look him up, Google him, right? And I'm gonna go back and show you where he was hired, I guess, nominated and voted into this position by the Department of State of the United States of America. So let's listen in to see what he has to say.
And attendees. Our theme this year Realizing the Dream makes a not-so-subtle reference to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, delivered 60 years ago this summer. I call it America's most well-known and least well-understood public address. Over the years, it's been distorted, sanitized, and drained of its true radical vision. Despite that, I believe we can now safely say that Dr. King's assertion that the U.S. Constitution was a promissory note which came back
So, pardon the interruption, family. I just want to go ahead and say fair use. Fair use. This video is being shown for educational purposes only. Let's not get this video taken down. Let's go ahead and say fair use. If somebody could put that in the chat, fair use. This video is being used for educational purposes only. Thank you, and let's move forward with the video. Cue the video.
marked insufficient funds for its Negro citizens was both accurate and ominous. The truth is, Dr. King believed in reparations. He called for it explicitly up until the last speech of life. The promissory note, the check that he demanded according to the terms of the U.S. Constitution, was never cashed. And it was 60 years ago until today, the wealth gap between African Americans and white Americans remains exactly the same. So 60 years later, it's up to us to now acknowledge him as the visionary he is, because after all of these years, it's now clear, more clear now than ever before, that reparations is what justice looks like in the 21st century. On December 16, 2005, the UN General Assembly reaffirmed the importance of providing reparations for gross violations of international human rights law by adopting a 5-point legal framework for reparations, and that has become our norm. That includes monetary compensation proportionate to the gravity of the harms done to our people, restitution, which would include repatriation, reconnection with our identity and our culture, satisfaction or repair for moral and ethical and injury to reputation and mental suffering. That includes apologies, memorials, and the ending of cruel genocide. Guarantees of non-repetition, laws to ensure that the continuation of slavery that in the United States we call mass incarceration would begin to stop. Rehabilitation, including mental health support and medical care to address the inequities that we will describe later on this week. But I would like to ask the question, as we link reparations to the other core idea that brought us here together, the idea of self-determination, why is it that our terms of repair are dictated to us by the UN? The same UN that even this morning has such a difficult time letting our people in the front door.
Try this strange 30 seconds bedtime to restore healthy sugar levels from the comfort of home.
The same UN that has such a difficult time finding the funds to allow us, the staff, to even process registrations. The problem is for our people, we must be able to begin to assert the principle that nothing about us without us. Nothing happens about us without us. And that includes here at the UN. In a recent Reese project, my students at Howard University found that over 90 reparations commissions have been just in the United States alone since the killing of George Floyd. 40% in local municipalities, 40% in universities, churches, and nonprofits. Even states like the state of California have brought people together. They have come up with programs that include the creation of freedmen's bureaus to give resources to people of African descent, and boards created by Black people to determine their own terms of their reparation. That includes a plan in Evanston, Ohio, reparations based on a record of housing discrimination that took place from 1919 to 1969, systematically extracting wealth from Black communities and creating equity in the pockets of white communities through home ownership. That includes programs that have been happening on the local level all across the country, driven by grassroots citizens. Why can't those grassroots citizens begin to determine their own terms for what reparations look like? Where's the role of African spirituality? Where's the role of our own cultural icons? When are we going to be able to prize and value some of our own ethical and moral principles as a people, and bring those to our legal analysis? In April of 2022, Harvard University put up a $100 million endowment fund and a report that was also 100 pages, deciding that it was going to give reparations because the university benefited from enslavement. These recommendations for how to use that money included scholarships for students who are already at Howard, and for professors at Black universities to go to lecture at Harvard, benefiting the Harvard students. A similar reparations program was proposed by the Church of England, also for $100 million, where a panel of experts selected by the Church of England itself would decide how to administer this fund, even though it was determined that the Church of England has already been documented to have made $1.3 billion from slavery. So whenever reparations is framed not as justice, not as repair, but as charity, or as a gift, the terms will always be self-serving. It wouldn't make sense for a bank robber to determine how much of the heist he will return, or select a panel of experts to dole out the stolen money according to his own vision of what's fair. So this is perhaps the most appropriate legal question to ponder. Crimes against humanity, governed by the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, adopted in 1988, is one perhaps interesting legal concept that we could apply to what happened to our people. Genocide, determined by the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, adopted by the General Assembly in 1948, shortly after the Holocaust, is another interesting legal claim that could be brought. But so far, we've left it to the scholars of the past, the lawyers of the past, the white scholars, the white lawyers, to determine the bounds of our legal imagination, to determine the narrow strictures that we will use to determine what justice looks like for our own people. So I come to you today with a novel proposal that we begin to think our own thoughts, propose our own vision of justice, and implement that justice as part of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. So I also propose today that we create a new bar association, including lawyers and non-lawyers, to discuss what it means to be repaired in 2023 for crimes that have been done to us in our
So, family, shalom. If you're just not joining us, what we're doing is we're reviewing the open remarks from the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent with Justin Hansford. He became a member of this committee in 2022, and he shall serve on this forum until 2024. And so this was his latest speech, opening remarks given at the forum held just last week. So this is new. This is new. This is new news. So this is not something that happened years ago. So I want everybody to share this video and give us a thumbs up so that the algorithms will let the video go forward to all those that are concerned about self-determination. So let's continue to listen. And once again, fair use. This is for educational purposes only. Thank you. We will resume with the video.
Are continuing to be done to us for over 500 years. Over 500 years. So for your consideration, Madam Chair, I propose that today we create a new community of legal thinkers that's not limited to lawyers, but includes anyone who is passionate about justice. And we come together and demand that many of the states in this that have benefited from the legacy of our oppression start the process of apology and reparation, but not on their terms, but on our terms. Thank you.
All right, family. So there you have it. That was his opening remarks. And I also have his closing remarks as well. But before we get to that, I want to go ahead and introduce our guest that's been patiently waiting behind backstage. I want to start with brother Major, who also came in and helped me to understand the story when we spoke earlier this week when the story first broke. And so I want to get his first reactions to this brother's speech and what he was saying in regards to what we need as far as letting our agenda be known and not letting the oppressors decide what our agenda will be. We want monetary reparations as well as restitution. We want mental repair. We want laws against repeat laws that held us back, oppressive laws, stopping mass incarceration. And he also said the idea of self determination. That's a hot button topic of discussion. And Major, I want to just go ahead and go first to you so that I can also get to our next guest who can speak on the topic of self determination extensively. So, Major, if you will, go ahead and speak to what the brother was saying there in the UN, and let us know if you think that it's important.
Well, positive vibration, good day to everybody. I think discussion is way overdue. It's only a discussion. Um and I don't think nowhere in our lifetime we see so many people talking about reparation, right? And I think it's a good thing because you having scholars, you having people from different backgrounds in our community addressing it. And we have these start stands by brothers like on Ramzu that's really pushing self-determination to the fullest, right? And what's so important right now, what's critical is that we have to get people in the room and talk. Because you have all these different verses and all these different ways how to address reparation, as well as self-determination and so forth, so on. But I do think it's a great thing. This brother is illustrating a lot of things that Brother Ramzu, Elana, and many others have spoke about. And I think it's about time a discussion is brought front center before all melanated people in this country, that's descendants, and whatnot of former slaves and what have you, and really caterpillar this conversation to us really taking action, because I really believe this can only be effective when we do what we got to do as a community to make sure that our rights are restored, human rights are restored, and the things owed us, we be given. That's my point.
Thank you for that, Brother Major. And I just want to follow up question by asking you: do you think that if the tribunal is held, which is what the brother is asking the UN to do you think that the United States government or United States corporation will come to the table in full faith and follow through, and it won't be another series of broken treaties?
I don't think we should even bank on what the United States government will do. We need to bank on what we gonna do, because it's just evidence. It's like when you look at criminal cases and civil cases. When they bring a case, they gotta what? They have to establish a foundation through evidence, whether it's direct or circumstantial evidence, right? And they have to build a case, and then they make their closing argument, and so forth, so on, right? But in this case here, we are the jury, the judge, and the prosecutor, right? We is that, so we know we shouldn't expect it. It'll be a big surprise if it happened, but it's just more and more evidence and proof of the fact that we're doing everything under UN guidelines, right? And when you bring it before them, and they still showing the way, that just lets you know why it's so important to exercise self-determination, why it's so important to exercise our human rights. Because we see they ignoring so-called human rights law. And the UN look like they're not gonna mess with these big old countries that control the UN. You know what I'm saying? That's oppressing people. So we have to take action to make sure that we get our rights and everything else that's for us, that's afforded to us.
Exactly, and that was the sentiment that the brother was saying, that basically he's done just talking. It's time for them to put their money where the rhetoric is. So let me go ahead and bring in the next guest, if you will, Major. If you want to hang on, you can stick around. Um,
Backstage, but
next,
yeah,
this next brother, he's no stranger to most of the people in the chat here, and he's made his way around the you know, the YouTube family that we call family. This is brother Ramzu Yunus of Detroit. So shalom and peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Shalom, salam alaikum, salute to you, salute to everyone, greetings to everyone listening. What was the question?
So my question to you, brother Ramzu, is that the brother talked about, you know, allowing the UN to make this tribunal come to light and so-called forcing the United States to recognize that they need to pay up reparations and all those different things that I detailed, or ways I detailed before. But what is your take on this tribunal? Is this just a formality? Does it really mean anything, or this is just another way to keep us from actually realizing our right to self-determination?
All right, okay, good question. Let me go and begin with making a statement on the mental condition or conditioning of Black people in America. We've had a special conditioning that no one on this earth have had or suffered from, in which our oppressor, those who conquered and enslaved us, put something called fear into us. And that it's proven that fear, anxiety passes on into the DNA. That's been found out in the past decade or so, that it is true that fear can pass on from generation to generation within the DNA of those people. So now whenever Black people, whenever we come up with a solution, our context deep down, we can call it subconscious, it's going to be framed inside that framework is going to be fear. Fear is going to be somewhere in there. So we're going to approach things differently than other people would approach. Even white people, they would not approach things the way that we approach. They would not approach their struggle against oppression the way we approach it. All other people, whether it be Asian people, South American people, African people, they would never approach their struggle. And if you study history, you will see that what I'm saying is true. They will never approach their struggle the way that we approach our struggle. We have that a deep ingrained fear of our oppressor, of white people. So whatever we do is going to be framed with that inside of that framework, that fear. So we're going to come up with solutions that don't involve facing master head on. Okay, so first off, we're going to establish that everything that we come up with, even if you're sincere, you still got that fear in you. So you're going to come up with a framework that's going to have that fear in there. So it's going to not be that effective as others have used effective frameworks to liberate themselves. So now I say that to say this. We all want to do something because we don't like the condition that we are in. We all want to give our input or contribute some kind of way to our liberation or to justice for Black people. So we're going to come up with things like a tribunal. We've had tribunals in the past. The United States ignores those tribunals. And we already know that we don't need a tribunal. They've already admitted guilt. It's already acknowledged at the UN level that the United States is guilty of massive human rights violations, and also that they owe reparations to Black people. So why would we have a tribunal? There's no reason to have a tribunal. And they're not going to come to a tribunal anyway, because they didn't come to any in the past. They won't even go to the International Criminal Court. They didn't even sign on to it. So they said, no, you can charge us with any crimes you want, just like George Bush, crimes that he committed in Iraq, so to speak. Henry Kissinger, all the administration, Barack Obama, all of the government officials, especially those at the head, have committed crimes of genocide against different peoples around the world. But they would never go to even an International Criminal Court. And they definitely are not going to come to our tribunal if we host one. But we want to do something to say that, look, we are struggling against the system and we're making a demand. Demand is a strong way of saying I'm asking. Because you're dependent on them to answer that demand. You're not taking anything from it. You're just saying, I demand it from you. But what if they say, oh, well, you demand all you want. I'm not giving you anything. And that's exactly what they're going to do. We've been in this reparations thing for decades. Even when I was a youngster, I was at the World Conference Against Racism in 2001. That's 22 years ago, held in Durban, South Africa, and the top reparations organizations of America, NCOBRA, was there. The Lost Foundation of Islam, under the leadership of Silas Muhammad, was there. Different organizations. Nation of Islam, under the leadership of Farrakhan, was there. Everybody was at that conference. Reparations was a big issue. That's 2001, 22 years ago. Issue still hasn't been addressed. So I think that we should take out the fear. I know it's hard to take out fear. It's in our DNA. But if fear wasn't there, if there wasn't something called a big bad white man who then oppressed us, and killed the whole world, robbed from the whole world, if he wasn't there, if you wasn't afraid of him, now what would you do? Would you have a tribunal and ask him to come to a tribunal? Or would you assert your right to take your reparations? Reparations means repair. First point of repair, if you look at the right of reparation, is to restore those people back to the condition that they were originally in before the violation. We were in a condition of self-determination. We had our own government. We enjoyed our own sovereign rights. So number one, we have to be put back into that condition. That's repair. And now compensation is a small part of that. Okay, you should give us what you owe us because we worked for free for so long and we suffered many harms because of those violations. But being that you're not going to do that, then we can ourselves start at the first point of reparations by asserting our right of self-determination. And if we find that if we do assert our right of self-determination, we will find that, look, all the assets and resources are now available to us to give ourselves monetary compensation. First, where we live at is a majority black, wherever we live at. I don't care if it's a white city, where you live is black, but we also have black areas, about 1,200 or so majority black areas across America. Where black people live is worth over $15 trillion in real estate value alone. That's just real estate value. That's not geographical value. If you count the geographical value, like the water resource of Detroit alone is worth over $70 trillion. So we have the resources. Now we just have to say, look, we're taking over these resources because we are a majority in this city. We have something called the right of self-determination, meaning we can simply stand up if we get everybody in agreement, or at least a majority in agreement, and look, we declare independence over this territory where all these resources are. Now we control those resources. Now we can leverage those resources and give ourselves that monetary compensation, because nothing is coming from the government. And why wait for them? Make demands, useless demands to them when we know they're not going to do anything. Let's put, as Comrade Major said, I wouldn't bank on them, because your account is going to come up empty if you bank on the United States to take action for our reparations. So all of these proposals, they are noble, and I admire and appreciate people for having the heart to stand up out of concern for our people to say, look, I propose this. But propose something that hasn't been done before. That has already been done. Tribunals have already been done. So what's your new tribunal with a new name, chairing or heading the tribunal? What makes
Actually, this would be something that's new, unless they haven't. Are you saying that they've already had a tribunal held by the UN, the United Nations?
First of all, a tribunal for what? When it's already, we don't need to have a case when the guilt is already proven. It's already admitted. It's already admitted. You don't need to have a tribunal to try to prove guilt. They admitted that they are guilty themselves. They passed something called House Resolution 194, where they apologized for what they did.
Okay, so then with any case, and we are talking about international law, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So with any case, then you have to actually go to some type of trial, which is what the tribunal is. And unless the United States government, who is the defendant in this case, decides that they're going to go ahead and settle, which this is what the brother, I think, is trying to allude to, with a settlement of $5 million per descendant of slavery. And then
did they have to go to trial to prove that Hitler did that to the Jews? Or did they say, we see you do it, we know it's evident that you did it, we're taking you to jail, everybody to prison, and we're taking resources from you and giving it to those Jews? They don't have to go to court for that. Nobody. That's something that, like I said, out of fear, we propose these things that we know they're not going to do. Did the Jews go to court? They didn't go to court. They didn't take Hitler. They didn't take the Germans to court to have a tribunal. They knew what they had did, and they said, "You."
So who decided? So who at what point there was some type of treaty drawn in 1948 to give the Jews the ability to receive funds from other nations?
Other nations. What about the Germans?
Yeah.
Other nations.
Right. Other nations, right. Other nations pay tribute or give alms to Jewry that's in Israel right now because of the atrocities that happened, the alleged atrocities that happened in Germany, right? But we call it the Holocaust. So what you're saying is that they were never brought before any international court as we're framing ourselves or positioning ourselves in this time in our quest for reparations.
The United States refuses to go to anybody's court. And those same Jews that are in Israel now are murdering people left and right, and they get away with it. Nobody in the UN admits it. They have passed resolutions, made public international statements against them and the United States, but nothing has been done. There's something that they came up with in international at the UN level called human rights, the rights and responsibilities of individuals and organs of society to stop those violations. So it's up, and part of when they were creating that Declaration on Rights and Responsibilities, one of the heads of that committee, he was a judge actually out of South Africa, he said, we're not short on resolutions, etc., condemning these acts. We know these acts are condemnable and they are violations. We know about the violations. What we're short on are people or entities that will enforce, because nobody's going to hold these people accountable. Nobody's going to hold the Jews accountable or Israelis accountable. Nobody's going to hold the United States accountable for what they have done and what they continue to do. But the part of the declaration was for them to bear witness, because they knew they're not going to do anything. So they said, well, because we as a UN body, all of us nations, weaker nations, we know we're not going to do anything against the superpower. So we're going to make a declaration declaring that individuals and groups and organs of society, they have a right and a responsibility to stand up against the violators themselves, because we're not going to do it. So being that they have such declarations out, we should take, like the Comrade Major said also, we got to put it in our own hands. It's in our own hands to give ourselves reparations instead of waiting on them. If you were starving and the food was right there, would you wait on your enemy who starved you to go to court to give you that food? Or are you going to go get that food by any means necessary in order to save your life when you know you have a right to get that food? I don't think you would wait on some tribunal to get that food that belongs to you. And when you know that tribunal is going to fail because you know they're not even going to show up to court, and you know that United Nations is not going to enforce anything against the superpower.
Well, I think that that's what the brother was alluding to when he also mentioned self-determination. So I have Comrade Daniel, who's backstage, and just want to ask him, bring him on in and allow him to introduce himself. And brother, once you introduce yourself, just want to go ahead and ask you to explain to the people if you would be for or against having this tribunal, as Brother Justin Hansford suggested in his speech.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. My name is Daniel Guthrie, I'm a human rights policy officer, and I appreciate you and thank you for inviting me to this conference. But as far as that tribunal goes, no, I'm against it, because we have tried and tried and tried. Every time you go to the oppressor to ask the oppressor for relief from his oppression, he gets to decide whether he's going to give you the relief or not. A tribunal is just something for them to listen to and declare whether it's right or wrong, true or false. What we need to do is assert our right of self-determination, which 1,200 nations, as it was already spoken on, approximately 1,200 areas, cities, are majority populated by Black citizens. That's the majority. With the ratification of the right of self-determination and the international covenants on civil and political rights, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Developments that was ratified in 1992, says we don't have to ask. We are a special people because we were never afforded the right to govern ourselves once we were taken over by this government. That is a special affordation that we have. So therefore, a tribunal is just going back to your oppressor and asking him for relief, because the oppressor is never going to give you relief, just like the education system is never going to educate you to the point where you can rise above him. So therefore, I'm definitely not for a tribunal. I know I have some other associates that have written letters, signing letters for national liberation status, turned those letters in to the UN, to the criminal courts, I guess you would call it the America, whatever they call it. It's the criminal court system, the ICC, the International Criminal Court. Now, those letters that was turned in were penned. Now, did they read those letters? Possibly, yes. But have they acted on it? No, that was 2 years ago. That was 2 years ago, and we have some our comrades, and we have some of our family and friends, and that's well known, that's incarcerated right now, that has a signatory on that international liberation status, but he's still incarcerated. So no matter what, and those signatures was put on there before the incarceration and the injustices. So therefore, no matter what we do, if you take anything to the oppressor for relief, it's going to be rejected or it's going to be put on the back burner. We don't have time for it to be put on the back burner. We are under condition of perpetual genocide by the people that we're asking to give us relief from. Those are the people who's committing the genocide that's been going on. Everyone mentions 400 years, 500 years, 400 of slavery and 150 of Jim Crow or whatever. They keep mentioning that, but reach back further. Let's go back further to where we've been under perpetual genocide for thousands of years. Millions of us have died and perished through their genocidal activity. There's no need for me, as I feel in my heart, and there's only so much people can take before that they will have to act. They will push. They're pushing us in a corner. They're pushing us in a corner, and I don't want it to get to the point where we're in the corner where we have to do what we have to do, and everything is all discombobulated. Everybody's at total aggression. This and that.
Well, if my brother, I don't mean to cut you
No, you're
off,
fine.
but before we go off on a tangent, it seems to me that according to the feeling that I get from Brother Ramzu, is that we are at that moment right now, sir. We are right there right now where we're at the point where, like Ramzu said, take it. Are we really there at that point? So let me redirect the conversation back to the point of how do we achieve if we what does taking reparations in our own hands, and what does that look like? Where's the plan? And don't tell me the plan.
Right.
But do we have a plan?
Yes.
Don't tell me the plan.
We can tell you the plan. The plan is right before your eyes. The plan is what everybody on the planet has done besides black people, because we have people suggesting proposals from a weak stance of fear. The plan is the same thing that the founding fathers did. We live here, we declare independence, we're taking control. The plan is the same thing the people of South Africa did, people of Zimbabwe did, the people of Rwanda did, the people of Kenya did, the people of Venezuela did, the people of Colombia did, the people of Vietnam did, the people of China did, the people of Thailand did, the people of Philippines did, the people, I could go on and name about 200 countries that did this.
The people of Puerto Rico.
The people that are under oppression, to stand up and say, look, we're governing ourselves free from your control. We declare independence.
Okay, so
simple as that.
Let's say tomorrow we say we stand up and do that.
Mm-hmm.
Have we identified all those people who are going to take care of those necessities throughout our communities, as i.e. Medical needs, school education, financing, just the day-to-day stuff, like who's going to pick up waste management, who's going to run the city hall, who's going to be the city manager in all of these different cities where we're saying take over. Have we put in, do we have a plan where we could say, okay, this is the fallback, this is the planning, and we have identified all these individuals that are ready to let's go, let's self-determine, let's govern ourselves?
Yeah, all cities are being ran by black people anyway. The black cities are being ran by us anyway. We're not saying when you say I declare independence, that means you destroy and stop all the systems. They continue running. You just take control over the city. You don't destroy anything. You want to go blow up stuff and have to start over new. It's already running. And if we had to start over, I'm willing to do that. Like many slaves had to make the decision, okay, I'm leaving the plantation. When Harriet was trying to get them to run away, say, hold on, Harriet, I know where I'm going to be tomorrow. I'm going to be on this plantation if I don't run. I know what I'm going to be eating tomorrow. They know what they're going to eat tomorrow, they know what, but they still going to be in that same slavery condition. The house, the one who was ready to run was ready to say, I don't care where I'm going to be tomorrow or what I'm going to eat. I'm getting away from here. Or the same thing that Nat had the choice, that those that rebelled with Nat Turner and other rebellions. They said, okay, we're going to take over this plantation. With Nat, how are we going to eat? With Nat, what's the situation? What will Master do? How is this thing going to be running smoothly? I don't care about that. I know that you are going to stop oppressing and enslaving me and whipping me tonight. I don't know where it's going to lead me, but I know I'm going to be free from Master, because Master going to be dead. So we don't get caught in a paralysis of analysis. I know I'm going to be anywhere, like Malcolm said. The house slaves start asking questions of analysis. The field slave said anywhere is better than this. So we're at that point. Anywhere is better than this. I don't care if they shut the power off. I know I'm free from those police that's going to kill me tomorrow anyway. So we got to make a decision. Do we want liberation, or we want comfortability, or what we are familiar with? Sometimes liberation, you might not have electricity for a week or two, but you're liberated. You might not be able to eat tomorrow. Knows you're going to eat, but you're going to be liberated. We got to be willing to take those sacrifices and not get caught up in the paralysis of analysis. But these cities are already being ran. Things are already running smoothly. Nobody's there in the government pushing buttons and making the city run every day. Its trash will get picked up. We will take care of that. We will take care of everything like we have been taken care of. But what we will know is that we will be free. That's all I have to say.
And also, when you think about it, as Comrade Ramsey said, we're already running the cities. We're in position. We had one guest on one of our conferences that asked, "Well, who's going to be the government?" Well, you govern your house every day. You manage your house. You know when you run out of tissue paper, you need to get more tissue paper. You know when the time to pay the electric bill, you pay the electric bill. If something breaks down, you get maintenance to come to repair it. But in these cities that we're speaking on, which the majority Black population, the 1,200 plus cities, approximate cities, we're already running them. We have refineries, we have airports, we have shipping docks, marine terminals. We have everything we need already, and we're already in those positions in those majority Black communities. That's one of the greatest things that keeps us, and that's hindering us, I should say, from doing this. Is that fear again? How are we going to, or the unknown? It's the fear of the unknown, but you actually already know because you're doing it. We have cities.
I'm sorry. I think you may have misunderstood my question. My question is, I know that once we say whether we're taking over these cities, I didn't say that we can't do this. I'm asking, have we identified those individuals who will be willing to step out there and put their basically lives on the line to stand with us in solidarity to take over those positions that, quite frankly, even though a lot of our people are living in those neighborhoods, quite often the city council members or the city manager or the mayor are not of this nation.
Yes.
So when we replace those people, because they definitely have to go. So when we replace those people, then can we identify someone qualified to take the position? I didn't say that there's no fear around here, my brother. I'm just saying, do we have to identify those who are qualified, and then in addition to making that qualification, identify those individuals who are willing to step out on the line and put their face where it's needed to stand and protect their people and do what's right by their people, and not rob and steal and take advantage of our people, as happening with so many of our Black politicians that we have in office today. That's the question. Do we have that plan in place for vetting these individuals who we're saying that's going to help us take over these cities?
We vetted ourselves. We got enough hands ourselves to take care of a city.
Yes, that's why I raised my hand. Yes. I'm a very intelligent individual. And we have we have our own council members that we have already within the human rights policy officers. So, and the city basically runs itself already, as I spoke before. We just need the folks in there to look over the documents, look over what it is. And now I'm not saying that those people that's already the personnel that's already in place will not stand with us. But yeah, I guarantee you, I feel in my heart, deep in my heart, that spirit's going to hit them when they know that, wow, it's finally over. We finally have control. The position that they are in, they're not going to abandon those positions. When you talk about other necessities, we have things in place that we just don't mention. That, as far as food necessities and this and other things. Plus, Comrade Ramsey has already explained, not on this forum, but on other forums, how it works, how you close the economy, how you either distribute or produce your own materials and products that you need, which the buildings are already there. In most of our communities there, as you know, they call it the ghetto. But the original ghetto was in those other people's communities during slavery. That they were in the ghetto. They just flipped it. But we have buildings and we have the infrastructure. Put it this way. We have the infrastructure to create, and you know where we can create grow houses, we can create refrigeration systems, and we're not talking about months down the road. We're talking about in a matter of weeks. Plus, we are managing the city now. Back to that, the people are already in place. The greatest thing is the unknown, the uncertainties, and we do have a plan, and I'm sure that Kamala Ramsey is going to. And as we get together and communicate more, and I apologize, I was brought to this conference because I am a human rights policy officer, and me and Comrade Ramsey has been operating and working together, along with the other policy officers and communities, for like 7 years now. But I just was not aware. I was not aware of you and your programs and your platforms. But that's going to be a thing of the past, because I'm definitely going to be communicating with you. This is so important that we put everything else aside. Whatever's, as Comrade said, we're not going to concern ourselves with after. First, we got to get there. That's the first thing. First, we have to get there. Once we get there and take independent political control, and not only use the term political because everyone is familiar with that term, political, but independent political control. When we start managing and running this system ourselves, which is just a simple process of educating the people, and no, informing the people of their rights of self-determination through international law, the universal declarations, saying you can do this. All we have to do in our communities, we are the majority population, which everywhere we are the community, in our communities, we are the majority population. Assert your right of self-determination, stand up and say, I assert my right. I withdraw my consent. I no longer consent to your government. I no longer consent, because that's how the government operates. They operate under consent. They don't operate under power. They operate under our consent. We go out, they lobby us, they nag us, they call us through the night, they knock on our doors, they do this and that, asking you to vote for them. In other words, they're submitting applications. That's what they're doing. They're submitting an application to be hired to a position to do what's right and for the people and the community. Well, if they don't do what's right for the people or that community, what do? As Comrade Ramsey's analogy he uses, if you work at McDonald's and you keep burning the fries, but you're gonna go to the owner or the boss at the time. Well, I'm gonna just keep burning the fries, and like the boss can't say nothing as far as the master.
Okay, I think that's what the brother was saying. He's saying that it's time for us to have the room to self determination without any well, what you call it, repercussions or retaliation from the United States corporation. So with that being said, if you guys don't mind, I want to go to another article.
Yes.
Was written. So hold on one second. Let me see if I can share my screen and see if it'll pull up
Sure, sister.
here. And Brother Ramsey, you and I talked earlier, last week, and could you go ahead and fill me in again as to what you're doing in Mississippi, and without giving away too much, of course, uh, but and inspire the people as to how you went from Detroit and now you're in Jackson. Can you explain to the people how that came about?
Yes. Well, of course, in Detroit, we launched the Black Independence movement there in Detroit some years ago. We got to make, first of all, we got to make a distinction. Dr. King had a meeting in 1967 in Frogmore, South Carolina. It was a strategy meeting he had with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. A strategy meeting in 1967 in Frogmore, South Carolina. Everybody listening needs to look that meeting up. Inside that meeting, Dr. King said we've moved from civil rights to human rights. He also said he said we were seeking to reform certain conditions in the house of our nation because the house wasn't living up to its own conditions or terms of the Constitution. He said, then after Selma and the Voting Rights Bill, we moved into a new era, which must be an era of revolution. Then he said, I think we must see the great distinction between a reform movement and a revolutionary movement. Now, that's Dr. King talking about 56 years ago, from civil rights to human rights, number one, from reform to revolution. And we need to see the distinction between reform and revolution. First, we need to know that reform, as he's proved himself, doesn't work. You can't reform this house. It's not going to do right. Stop asking, because they're not going to do right. He said, now revolution just confronts power and takes power. He said that at the same meeting, that we're going to confront and take power. Now we got to see the great distinction so that we won't get confused between the two. Because some people think they're making a revolutionary move, but they just reform. Some people think because I use the word demand, I'm a revolutionary. No, you're trying to reform something that can't be reformed. You say we're going to make demands. When you say we're going to have a tribunal, that's a reformative move. You think you hoping that this system reforms itself. Now, if you say I'm going to assert my right of self-determination and take control, now that's a revolution. So as Dr. King said, we got to see the distinction between a reform movement and a revolutionary movement. Now, if you're with a reform movement, Dr. King said we moved into a new era. So if you want to continue to do that, we're through with you with that, and we're through with you if you're going to continue to do that. We got to do something different. So somebody in the chat section said something about sitting together at a round table. Before we can sit together at a round table and come together, we've got to make the distinction. Are you trying to reform this thing, or you want to confront it and take power that you have the right to do? And so making that decision, we embarked upon what we're doing in Detroit, the right of self-determination, asserting the right of self-determination, asking the people of Detroit, are you tired of trying to reform this thing? Are you tired of protesting, begging, crying against the wrongs that they have done in Detroit against black people all over? But in Detroit, we got the housing situation where they illegally evicted over 100,000 households, illegally. It took over $600 million from them people illegally. They even admit this now. Their court even admitted this. Now, the groups in Detroit, the other organizations want to keep protesting, asking them to do right. They say, okay, we'll do right. Out of the $600 million, we'll give you $6 million. Still not going to give you your 100,000 houses back. Now, that's a reform movement, trying to ask them to do something. Now, when a revolutionary movement like the human rights policy officers come along and say, no. We're going to assert our right of self-determination, and we're taking every last empty building in this city because we have a right to do that. And so that's what we started doing in Detroit. And now, by asserting the right of self-determination, of course, the other organizations that are in fear and working with the government, whether they're working with them directly or by working with them by not standing up, they still working with the government. They decided not to stand with us in Detroit. So we had to regroup and build our capacity to enforce our self-determination, which we are doing now. But in the meantime, something happened in Jackson, Mississippi. They passed a bill to basically put this system in apartheid, strip voting rights from the people. And then that's just a door opener to the overall takeover of the city. Capitol Police got jurisdiction all over the city, and they've known to have no oversight and kill black people at will. So we said, no, somebody got in touch with us actually and said, look, you all should go to Jackson and teach them how to assert the right of self-determination, because that's the only thing that can stop Bill 1020. Just like it's the only thing that can stop oppression period, of black people everywhere in America, is by them standing up and saying, look, we divorce ourselves, so we ain't got to follow no state legislator because we divorce ourselves from state legislator. We divorce ourselves from federal legislation. That's the right of self-determination. So we're here in Mississippi telling them, look, either you're going to become an apartheid city or you're going to do what we should be doing anyway by asserting the right of self-determination. So we are hosting a referendum for the people to vote, and 99.999% of the people that we approach, all of them vote for their independence. And now we're going to declare and celebrate their independence on June the 25th. And as usual, we're calling on, because the Human Rights Policy Office, the people that are courageous enough to stand up like that, it's just not like the biblical days. Only Joshua and Caleb. So all we have is a few Joshua and Caleb groups, about 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 of us to stand up. So we, as usual, we're calling on all the revolutionary groups that say they're revolutionary. Now, you got to make a distinction. Are you revolutionary or are you reformed? If you are a revolutionary, you will be here with us standing up, taking over a city as your right to revolution, to self-determination. So that's what we're doing in Jackson, Mississippi. And that's what we're calling on people to participate in a real revolution. That's lawful, that the United States even encourages according to their policies. So that's what we're
right. And so that is a perfect segue into my next question for you, comrade. There is a great debate that's going on amongst people that look like you and I, melanated people, Aboriginal, FBA, B1, Pan-Africanists, Hebrew Israelites. What are we identifying with as a nation of people? Because as far as I can, from my understanding, the United Nations, that's a group of that's nations of people. Mm-hmm. And so and we're declaring to be sovereign ourselves, sovereign and set apart from what we know as the United States of America, which is a nation recognized by the UN. So do we have a name as to what we're calling, what nation of people are we representing ourselves as? Because there are over 52 countries in Africa. So which nation of people are we saying we are?
Who we identify as, or our particular movements. Like in Detroit, we could call ourselves anything. Like in Detroit, we're calling ourselves the Republic of Detroit. In Jackson, we're saying we're the Republic of Jackson. Now, you can...
Comrade, I believe she's asking as a whole, Afro-descendants.
In the UN, they classify all of us as Afro-descendants, those of African descent. So once that's a peoples. Now within that peoples, it could be, you could call yourselves anything you want to, but they already group you together as a people. They group the people of Africa. For instance, I was in Zimbabwe. They just called them the Black Zimbabweans or the Black people of Rhodesia. But within that was the Ndebele, the Shona, and different groups who identified themselves differently from each other. But they first had to free that land under what was internationally recognized. Now we're internationally recognized as Afro-descendants. And those who are not Afro-descendants may be indigenous. There are two groups of people recognized at the UN level, Afro-descendants and indigenous. And both of them have a right of self-determination. So when you free yourselves under whatever they recognize, now you can put your flag up and say, okay, the land is free, we're governing ourselves. You have a right to nationality. So I'm gonna call myself a Moor. I'm gonna call myself a Hebrew. I'm gonna call myself a such and such. But in the United States, there are many people that identify as Jews. Many people identify as whatever, but they still vote. They still vote and put somebody that protects or represents their interests in power. You don't have to be the same nationality or call yourself the same thing to exercise your collective power. So we just want people to come together and exercise their collective power as being an oppressed people that UN recognizes as Afro-descendants. And just assert your right of self-determination. Then you can, after that is over with, then you can get together and say, okay, I'm a Moorish, we Moors, we Hebrews, we this and we that. If that's what you want.
Okay, so I just heard somewhere that that the UN does not pay reparations to continents, that they pay reparations to nations of people. And so African descendants, that's a broad term, because a lot of people would argue that there are some African descendants that never
Yeah,
uh,
okay, I see where you're going from.
never experienced slavery,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So that's the pushback I know that people will give. And I don't want to, unfortunately, I wish I had more time to continue this discussion,
Hmm.
because I think that that's one of the sticking points, and now
That's a
I'm trying
sticking
to look
point
at
for people that have absolutely no knowledge or experience whatsoever. They're dealing with a lot of ideologies that they haven't resulted or netted any results for us. First of all, to be a nation, you got to have a land that you control. First, you got to have a land. Now, upon that land, you could call it whatever you want to call it. First of all, not just a name. What do you control to be? You have three components of a nation. You got to have the territory and the population and the governing body as a government. But you have to have those to be a nation. So if you just have a name to call yourself and no land, you're not a nation. You're just a
but
symbolic nation calling yourself something. Where is your territory? First of all, people that are recognized at the UN, they have land that they govern. You can't be at the UN and not have land, just calling yourself a nationality. You have to have some land.
and that's why I asked, do we have a plan to self-govern all of these different cities, which is real estate? That's the land, all of the homes, all of the infrastructure, all of the city hall buildings, all of the courthouses. They then becomes possessions of this particular nation, correct? But what is this nation that's popping up all over the United States? See, the United States is gonna I'm not going to prophesy on that, but what I'm saying is it makes it very difficult to say that we're united if everybody in all these different cities are doing things their own
I
way.
mean, they're free to do stuff their own way. I would
Yes.
recommend we become confederated together, but each, like we saying Republic of Detroit, that's something separate. We're saying Republic of Jackson, that's something separate. But we all can come, just like the United States is a federation of states that call themselves united. Then we can become united. But we're free. If somebody wants to just be on their own in Oklahoma or in somewhere else, they're free to make that choice. And I support them because they are liberated. But
Yes.
of course, it would be
Okay, so
stronger if
and
we choose
that's
to be federated. Go ahead.
and that's why you went down to Jackson, because they needed help on how to implement that, start that uh roll down the path of rights to self-determination. Um is that
No,
correct? That's why you're there?
the conditions are right for this. First of all, you have a mayor that's always talking about self-determination. You have a good segment of the population that knows about self-determination. And you have a people whose back is up against the wall and they will fight. Now, because they have no other choice. So the conditions were better here. In many revolutions throughout history, you'll find that sometimes the battlefield in one area was not right, so they chose another battlefield that they could easily win on, and also can set the tone or momentum for them to win on the first battlefield. So that's what we're doing here. We're not particularly say we love Mississippi better than Detroit or anything. We're just saying, look, this is in better condition for us to assert the right of self-determination.
I got you, because you have I guess you could say immediate segue into the politician state, right? The political state
Mm-hmm.
right now as it is.
Indeed.
That's a good position to be in right now in this time, and I think that as more and more nations, as was demonstrated in the UN, that forum, as more and more nations are getting behind um, the descendants of slaves, that they should have reparations. I think that the United States is going to be feel the pressure if we could somehow have a campaign to do sanctions, for those other countries to do sanctions against the United States, for that would even work too. So I'm not saying that we have to depend on them, but I'm just saying that we shouldn't turn a blind eye to exhaust those remedies. And with that being said, I want to thank you, Brother Daniel, for coming through, and go ahead and give your last words as we close out, and then I'll go to Ramzu,
Yes,
and then I'll get final thoughts.
yes, thank you, and I thank you for having me here. And but just keep it short. You spoke on sanctions. Well, it's the BRIC nation. That's Brazil, India, Russia, or Brazil, Russia, India, China, and that's another one more. I think Saudi Arabia.
South
They're
Africa.
already putting something or developing something such as or equivalent to sanctions by getting rid of the U.S. dollar. So that's already happening. Sanctions between those countries. But as far as my thoughts and my opinions is the one of the things that we must do is we must realize the necessity of what we're doing, the necessity. Because if we don't do this now, then when? If we don't do this in Jackson or Detroit, then where? And if we don't do it, then who? And I'll land right there.
Thank you, my brother. Okay, Brother Ramzu. Of course, I've always it's a pleasure to speaking with you. You always inspire me, get me all riled up, right? In our quest for self determination and want to be free and liberated from the colonizers, right? So, brother, go ahead and give us your last thoughts on reparations and tribunals, and does it really matter? And let us know what's next for you in your activism for our self determination.
My thoughts are the same as usual. I don't change. I have the same spiel, and that's just for us to first know that we have a right of self determination, and take that right seriously and act upon it. So that's what we're doing in Detroit. That's what we're doing in Jackson, and we influence and encourage everybody else to learn about their right of self determination. But most of all, develop, if you don't have the courage, develop, if you can, the courage to assert that right of self-determination, because that is the only thing that is guaranteed to take us out. Guaranteed now. Now, if all of a sudden, white folks' government may love us and become angels of light and do something for us. But I don't think our people will bet on that one. So because we won't bet on that one and it's in our hands, then we have to actually do something about this. And we can by asserting our right of self-determination, which takes the reliance upon the enemy away. And we rely on what we will do. So I encourage us to do, or we will continue to suffer and condemn our posterity to the same suffering, even more suffering that we have been going through. But I love you, sister, for putting on this platform. We need platforms like this for our people. I encourage you to continue the fight. I know this will get larger, but everyone that's listening, let's please take heed, learn your right of self-determination. Let's spread the word about self-determination, because when people are equipped with that information, then the actions that's going to come will be the proper actions, or the reactions that's going to come, because the enemy is going to do more things, but we're going to react out of lack of knowledge of self-determination. But if we have that knowledge of self-determination, then the millions that will mobilize because of the actions that are coming, it will be a mobilization to actually assert that right of self-determination, and we will be in control. Love you all, everybody. Have a blessed evening. Salute.
Salute, Comrade Ramzu Eunice. Be safe out there. Take care of yourself, brother. Most High bless you. Shalom, brother.
Shalom.
So, once again, brothers and sisters, we were talking about the right to self-determination. We were talking about reparations. The brother Justin Hansford went before the UN and basically laid out the cause for why we should have a tribunal held by the UN, and the tribunal, the outcome is to force the United States to pay reparations to the tune of $5 million per African descendant of slaves. So that may be you, that may be me. Either way, they are talking about reparations again. It's a smoke screen to keep us distracted, or are they really actually considering it just when the fiat dollar may be on its last leg? So what the brother was saying regarding BRICS may have a very, very interesting twist to all of this reparations talk, and I wonder how our community is going to react to that change when it happens. So once again, I want to thank Major TV for coming through and giving his thoughts, Brother Daniel, Brother Ramzu, everyone in the chat. I salute you for staying in tune. Please like and share the video. If you haven't subscribed, please already go ahead and do that. And until I go live again, please keep looking forward to video uploads that I may do occasionally out throughout the week. And look forward to our new news website, newsfactsnc.net. Will be dropping real soon, where you can get all these stories that I talk about here on YouTube, as well as more stories. So, as usual, I love you all with the love of Yahuwah. This is Okoti Tamar. Okoti speaks, and I approve this message. Shalom.